vital to how I understand the world and take in what is given to me and what I experience. And it's, the lens through which I see everything else. And I think that's a healthy thing. And
I think definitely moving to college and having my family so far away, knowing that like God was with me and that aspect of my life was the same, was so important and so soothing.
In my own experience, a lot of my faith was just acted out without much knowledge. I had to make my relationship with Christ my own first.
It's an anchor. It's a lifesaver. I know I would not be here today, literally, without God. He has brought me through everything I've lived through. And
I get so awkward talking about faith because it's hard to talk about it without like using cliches and like my concept of God was that he was so controlling and I just had to please him. And I was like reading some book about God's love for us and I had a complete breakdown. I tore the book to shreds, like threw it all over my living room floor. I was like, this is crap. I probably didn't say crap. And it was just years of like, God, I have tried so hard. Like I have tried and tried and tried and it's not working for me anymore. And you have got to step up because I'm done. Like I cannot do this anymore.
If you try and hold on too tightly to the global nature of the faith, you'll deprive yourself of what's necessary in the local element of the faith that's going to sustain you just in everyday life.
I remember going through a phase when I really struggled with the concept of all the different religions in the world. I remember being so brokenhearted because you look at these other people who truly, genuinely believe what they believe, and they're convinced that what they believe is truth. I mean, it didn't matter where you were. They would stop, pull out their prayer mats, and they were praying. And I remember thinking, they're so much more committed than I feel like I am. And yet, we're here saying that they're lost. How do I know that they're the ones that have it wrong and not me? I think in some ways that was because of being an MK. I was exposed to so many more nationalities and so many more world religions.
I never had a congregation that I called my own. I was moving a lot, and so there's always different congregations. And honestly, it was all non-denominational. And I moved to where I am now, and it's like the whole entire city is one denomination. They preach their doctrine, and I hardly knew what doctrine was before I went. And so I kind of went through the shock of like, well, do I even know what I believe, and do I believe the right thing? And there's things that I thought I knew that do I know now?
Like in high school, I didn't know how to understand or cope with the losses. So my coping mechanism was to be angry. I used to be so angry, like throwing stuff around, and just this anger, this deep anger toward God, toward my parents, toward my whole life was really deep.
I grew up with an Islamic flavor to my God, which I didn't realize till I sort of started thinking it through. But my God was very much one that you give a lot to, and you kind of hope for things in return. So I think I kind of internalized bits of this Muslim perspective on God that I never realized.
There's a lot of pressure put on children, put on me and my brother, to play our part. Not just in our missionary community, not even overseas. Even coming back to the States, a lot of pressure to play and act. Visiting churches, we'd have to play the good Christian missionary sons.
God had them like preparing for ministry for 10 years. My dad left his job. He went to Bible college. We raised support forever. It was like pulling teeth. And then we get there and we're there 4 years less than it took to get there. And then I went off to BFA and had this incredible life at BFA. And it was horrible for my parents in Russia. And it was horrible for my brothers. And I feel so guilty. I'm like, oh my gosh, God, you put my family through crap so that I could have a good life.
The missionary culture, like, there's so much like self-sacrifice and martyrdom like floating around that you just get in the mindset of like, God's never gonna do jack crap for me. Like this is like, God's not ever like, he's not gonna come through for me, because the point of me being a Christian is to suffer. So I think there was this sense of this very unstable, unsafe God who kind of wanted me to suffer to prove something to him.
I do know MKs who have kind of gone off the deep end because of either neglect or abuse. I have some friends that I'm not as much in touch with anymore, but who I know have struggled with their faith and have experimented with other religions and with other ways to find peace and to find what's missing. And I know that some of them are very lost.
Yeah, it definitely has something to do with how they grew up and just the hardship of moving and not having like stable relationships and like blaming that on their parents and on God and on God's call to their parents, and kind of not understanding how to reconcile like a loving God with this God who calls their parents to move and upset their lives and completely throw them off.
To have such hurts from like feeling like they were hurt by God and intentionally hurt by God, and then not even having that figure, that fatherly figure, that comforter who comes alongside, like just walking away from that. I can't imagine how difficult it is for them.
I don't know if they were necessarily grounded in their faith beforehand or living vicariously through their parents' faith. And when you don't have that foundation of faith, when you're struck with so many difficult things, it's hard to find the answers and it's easy to give up.
For me to doubt whether what my parents were doing was a good thing and whether to doubt the Christian faith would have just been reactionary.
And to me, that, doubt's okay. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to, to wonder why or whatever. And through asking those questions, through struggling and wrestling with God, that maybe God will give you some answers, maybe not, but through that process, there's growth and there's learning.
Even if Christ played with doubt in the garden, like if he spent an anguished night in prayer asking God, why have you forsaken me, then we're permitted the same doubt. But to stay in that doubt is just ineffective, and it's like choosing doubt as your worldview is like choosing immobility as a means of transportation, because you're never going to get anywhere if you stay stuck and stagnant in that doubt. You have to move past it and be willing to like look forward rather than just stay in the same place.
I realized when moving to college that like there are so many ways to approach Christianity, and having to like process that and realize that those other people's versions of Christianity were also valid and that they brought something valid to the table was really hard but really important.
Yeah, for me, it's just been really just who am I? Answering that kind of question, and who do I want to be? And seeing how Christianity or my faith fits into who I want to become, who I want to be. I can hold on to the joy and peace that comes from God, because I'm always thinking, despite this stuff happening in my life, God is still good. God is still providing for me.
It wasn't until I got to that point of like allowing myself to be furious with God for everything I thought he hadn't been for me. I finally saw his grace for what it is. It clicked. Something clicked with me emotionally as opposed to theologically or intellectually. Coming to that point where I met grace for what I needed most, it opened up the door to all kinds of confidence for grace for the smaller things.